Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Cricket Coach. Today, as per usual, we are looking ahead to Game Week 6 with a preview of the week and my own personal team. So we'll look at the top transfers in, the top transfers out, some international team news, my thoughts on taking a hit, and finally, my transfer plans and team selection. So straight into it from the top, the transfers in this week. These are the top transfer players transferred in this week. We have Simpson, Harris, Haynes, Barnard, and Dawson. To be honest with you, nothing much to say here. They're all great options. They're all playing. They're all very good in your team. They've got good game involvement. And, all these players are in and around the top of the point scoring list. And after their blanks, now is a really good buy point for these players. So would recommend all of them. I don't see any problems here. I think it's a pretty good list. So well done to the cricket draft community. Done well on that one. Transfers out this week. Moving on swiftly. We have Higgins, Bracey, Vaughan, Rue, and Madsen. It's immediately important to say that none of them play this week. And so they're pretty understandable transfers out. Without a fixture, with that yellow disc in a lot of teams, there's got to be a transfer out. However, Higgins, Bracey, and Root are all doing fairly well with their, individual nuances with if you want them or not. But overall, they've been fairly good options. So if you can bench them for this week and keep them in your team for next week, that could be really good. But if you can't get a full 11 out this week, if you can't keep them and get a full 11 out, it's definitely a solid transfer out. But those are some good players. And if you can afford to keep them on at the bench for a week, you might reap the rewards of having them next week when maybe others won't. I know for my team, I think I'm going to try to keep Bracey on the bench this week. And so hopefully next week when he comes back, he'll be slightly lower owned. And if he picks up points, they could be super valuable. So just something to consider, but no fixtures, understandable transfers out for them. Moving on, some important players to speak about for this week and some maybe players that you might want to target are the international players that are potentially playing for the first time in the competition this week. We've Curtis Patterson for Surrey, Tom Latham for Warwickshire, and Mohammed Abbas replacing Fergus O'Neill at Nottinghamshire. I think all three are pretty good options and they can have a big impact on the competition and a big impact on the games that they play in. And I think the most important thing is they'll be fairly low owned. As you can see on the screen now, Patterson's not even in the game yet. And the other two are super low owned. We're talking single digits, very, very low. And therefore their points could be massive differentially. And I think they're great picks anyway. One word against them, sort of even the argument, is that they're coming to this competition cold. There's a lot of good players that have already played 4 or 5 games and are in a bit of form. But these internationals are, untried as of yet this season. And so they're a little bit more unpredictable about how they will go. But that's sort of the beauty of the game and it's hard to predict. So 3 good options here. And if you're feeling perhaps a little bit spicy, they could be someone to go for. But that's up to you and it's a tough call. Next is a point I've wanted to address for a while. I think this is a really big part of the cricket draft game and I want to address it for a while. And seeing as this is the final blank game week of the whole competition, I think now is probably a good time rather than never. It's on taking hits. So this week, Game Week 6 in particular, we get 3 free transfers from the game, and then there's also 3 penalty transfers, which cost 75 each. So you get minus 75 for taking them. So is it worth it? The short answer, and maybe not very helpful, is it's very dependent. Really, really dependent. If your transfer, for example, this week is Higgins to Dawson, I'd say yes. For minus 75 points, that's a good transfer. Dawson is almost certainly going to pick up 75 points. So I think yes. But is it worth it to maybe put in a sub 5 million, a sub 5.5 million player? Is that a last minute hit worth that 75 points? Maybe not. For example, last week I brought in Richards as a last minute pick because of some rest of rotation team news for a 75 point hit, and he only got 50 in the end. That's a big minus for me. And now I still have Richards in my team. So I think it can pay off and be very effective when used, right, but used with caution. Is really dependent on the player you're trying to bring in and the player that's leaving your team. If you don't have to, or the player you're going to bring in is maybe not the best, then I would try and avoid it. My personal tactic in all fantasy games really is avoid hits at all costs. And, sometimes it's unavailable, but if you plan well, and things don't go drastically wrong with injuries and things, I think taking a hit should try and be avoided. It's not worth the 75 points, and those points can add up over a season. If you take a minus 75 point hit every single week, I mean, I'm not going to do the maths, but at the end of the competition, that's over 1,000 points. You'll be below someone who doesn't take a 75 point hit every week. So try and minimize them. If you're going to use them effectively, not like I did last week, but use them effectively, use them well, and a hit can be very good at times. Okay, glad I clarified that. I think that's something important I wanted to get out there for a little while now. Okay, moving on to the important bit concerning my own team. For reference, this is how my team looks as of now, considering with no transfers. So I've got a full 11 without transfers. So I'm in a really good place. It's a good opportunity to plan ahead and shape the team how I want. And therefore, these are the transfers I'm going to make or I'm looking at making. First of all, Higgins to Dawson. I'm not entirely happy with selling Higo. I never am. He's one of my favourite players. He's one of my favourite fantasy players, but now seems like a good time. I want Dawson, and with no fixture for Higgins this week, it gives me a really good sell point for him. And it's a pretty clean and simple and natural feeling transfer to go straight to Dawson. I don't want to overthink it too much and maybe talk myself out of it. It seems natural, it seems simple, so I'm just going to go with it. I think that's a good move for this week. Next is Jennings to Harris. It's a sideways move in the Lancashire team, but to be honest, I backed the wrong batter. I thought Jennings was going to do very well in this season, but in fact, it was Harris who's done even better. So I'm not 100% confident backing Harris too. Can he keep churning out the runs? Maybe, but I think Jennings, I don't particularly want him on my team anymore. And Harris comes in maybe for the fact there's a lack of a better option. There's a few good batters going around, but no one that seems like a must-have pick at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see who scores runs this week, then this weekend, really. But overall, I'm happy with that move. I think it's a positive move. I think it puts my team in a much better place in the batting department. But we will see. Final move, again, this is going to seem a little bit weird, but Geddes to Lord, Rob Lord. I spoke about this transfer a fair amount in the video earlier this week, so sorry to repeat myself a little bit for those who've watched it, but it's a functional move, really. Nottinghamshire have no Pennington and no Stone with injury. I don't think Tongue is going to be playing much, if any, more county cricket this season. So individuals such as Lord and maybe Conor McCurry are going to have to get the call up. They're going to have to step up and hopefully play a lot of minutes and overs for the rest of the season. Also, with my transfers and the shape of my team, I'm able to bench Lord this week, which is what I want to do because I'm not 100% he starts this week, but maybe he starts the next week or the week after that. It's tough to say. So I'm happy to bring him in and assume he's going to play a fair amount for the rest of the season. He's a super cheap enabler that allows me to do my other moves. And I think that could be a very good move this week. Okay, so with those moves, this is what my final team selection for Game Week 6 will look like. In the batting department, Yates keeps his spot. I've been happy with him. I hope he kicks on. Nothing else to say there. Let's see how he goes. My punt, Nichols comes back into the team after a week break. He's in a side that are struggling a bit, to be honest with you, but he did very well. Well, not very well. He did okay. He did manageable in his first game. So be interested to see how he goes this week and if he can bolster that Worcestershire side a little bit. Harris for Jennings is my first move, as explained before. So hopefully there are some runs for Harris this week too. The batters, I'm not really confident in them, but there's also no one that I particularly feel like I'm missing. So it'll be interesting to see how they go, and there might be some runs there. In the all-rounder department, Cheap Brooks holds his place, comes back in off the bench. He's got high potential, but he's a little inconsistent. So it could be a feast or a famine week for him. Hope it's a feast. Let's see how he goes. And then we get to the real engine room of the team, the core of the team, Barnard, Proctor and Dawson. They're all good all-rounders. They've got really good game involvement. And to be honest, I'm confident to say they're all certainly going to get over 100 points. Maybe I've jinxed it and they won't now, but I'm pretty certain they'll get over 100 points. I think one of them is going to be my captain, almost certainly, and more on that in a minute, but I'm really happy with them. And let's just see how they go. They're going to pick up points, those three. They're all really good all-rounders. Simpson comes back in with the gloves. He's had a superb start. He had a rest last week. Let's see if he kicks on. Not much to say about him, as I'm super happy. I think he's a great pick. I think you should have him in your team. If you don't, let's see if he can keep that form going. Moving on to the bowling department. It's always the part of my team that I'm the least happy with, to be honest with you. Porter, he's a set and forget. When maybe there's no Cook this week, who knows? But he could go very well leading that Essex attack, and that could be a really interesting move for him. Ahmed's done well, and now with the dangerous O'Neill gone, maybe there's a few more wickets on offer for other Notts bowlers to be shared around a little bit. So maybe there's a few more for Farhan there, which looks good. He's also super cheap, and he's one of my favourite team players in the team at the moment. You know, he enables the big players while also picking up some decent points, and that is ideal for a cheap enabler option. Gorvin is still an unknown quantity in my book. You know, he's done very well in the 2 games he played, over 200 points in both games, but I'm unsure how sustainable that is, and I'm not sure if he's going to do it every week. I wouldn't be surprised if he walks away with less than 50 points this week. I mean, maybe that's just me being a little cynical, and let's hope for another 200 pointer. He could well go get another 200 pointer too. So I'll be interested to see how he goes. But I think it's a little unknown to me, so that'll be an interesting one. Finally, on the bench, with the transfers that I've made this week, I'm able to bench both Lord and Richards, which I'm really happy about. I didn't particularly want to play either of them. I'm almost certain I'll sell Richards at some point in the near future, unless his game involvement improves. But they're both cheap options, which to have on the bench is not the end of the world. You know, after all these blank game weeks we've just had, rebuilding some bench strength is important, and it can help me in future weeks, I think. Bracey and Holland, no fixture, so an easy benching. There was an idea I could sell Bracey, perhaps. I mean, 3 weeks ago, I very nearly did Bracey to Verena, and Verena hasn't scored a run since, so thank God I didn't do that because Bracey's done very well since too. I think it warrants him staying for another week. You know, I have the team structure. I'm able to bench him for the week, so I'm happy to have him to keep him for the future, and I hope his good form continues. I'm able to bench him. It's a bit of a luxury, and if I can do so, I think I should. So onto the bench he goes, and I'll keep him for the week after. So that is the team for a week. For the week, this is my team going to game week 6. A couple of bits and pieces before I end this video. Geddes had to be sold for Lord instead of Richards, which might seem strange, but I would have much preferred to sell Richard, but I only have 0.3 million in the bank with this team, so it was more of a price thing. I had to go and sell Geddes as my only other option, really. It's a shame, but it's not an awful sell. He wasn't doing fantastically well. He wasn't a definite keep, but it's a bit of a shame because I would have preferred to sell Richards, but that's just the way things go sometimes with price. Finally, captaincy. It's really hard this week, to be honest with you. It's currently on Barnard, who's at home to Surrey, because he started the season really well with both bat and ball. He seems to be just doing super consistent. But the other two all-rounders, Proctor home to Lancashire and Dawson away to Notts could be really good options. Proctor, I think, has the best fixture, but Dawson's always a solid pick. It's really hard this week and something I'll probably debate all the way to the deadline, I reckon. I mean, maybe double captain is the answer. I've always tried to save it till later in the season, but there are some really good captaincy options this week, and maybe just sort of embody the carpe diem and hit the chip. It's tough to say, but I think either way, there's a lot of potential there. One of those three, maybe even two of those three, will get the captaincy. In fact, just recording this segment, I've almost talked myself into using the double captain chip. But which two as well is the question. It's a tough one. Anyway, I'll stop rambling now. I'll decide on that one. So thank you very much for watching. Good luck all this week. I hope it goes well for you, and I will be back next week and to see how this team does. Cheers.